Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone, wherever you may be, anywhere across the world, really. Well, thanks so much for joining us here live today for Serverless Office Hours. Streaming live if you're finding us on the AWS Twitch channel and also Serverless Land YouTube. So that's YouTube/Serverless Land, and you can also catch up on all the previous episodes. My name is Julian Wood. I'm a Senior Developer Advocate for Serverless at AWS. And I'm joined by the effervescent, the amazing, and the incredible Talia Nassi this week. And Talia is actually a colleague, so this is super cool to have another senior developer advocate for AWS Serverless. Talia, how are you, and what would you like to tell us about yourself?
I'm fantastic. I'm so excited to do office hours. Something about me, I live in Los Angeles, and it's 1,000,000 degrees outside. And Julian was just telling me that he's in France and it's raining. So you can see serverless just like brings all of us together no matter where we are or what we're doing.
Exactly. So I'm on tour. Serverless Land is slightly on tour. I'm in France. I've been definitely partaking of the cheese and wine as you have to. And I know particularly that Talia is quite happy for a chocolate or an almond croissant. I had one yesterday morning, so I've ticked that off the bucket list. So if my Wi-Fi connection is also a little bit tentative, so if I start to look a bit weird or freezing like that kind of thing, that's just the way of the French life. So what can we do about that? But yeah, I'm super happy to have Talia on this, and I'll get into what we're going to be talking about shortly. And of course, this is live, so please send us your questions about what you're talking about today, or anything about general serverless development. We may not know everything, but we'll try our best to answer any of your questions. And if not, of course, we can sort of get back to you. Now, one thing I did want to mention is Eric always talks about his kids, and he's got way too many of them, and I'm sure he doesn't own up to all of his kids, and he certainly can't remember all of their names, which I think is awesome. So he's got numbers 1 through to 5, which is brilliant. But I've got 2 kids who are twins, but Talia is a triplet herself. So how awesome is that? As a parent of the twins, I think, they're a bit older now, but when they were super young, like, having twins and whatever, triplets, but that must be cool. Talia, what's it like being a triplet?
It's really cool. We were just talking about how we weren't super close, like growing up. We kind of hated each other, and then once we separated to like go to different schools for college, then we grew a little bit closer. But now we all love each other, and everything's fine. But they both went the finance and like investment banking route. Like they're in finance and I'm in tech. So even just like what we do is completely different. But like they're both in finance, and they like went to the same college. Like they're 2 peas in a pod, and I'm over here in serverless.
They're 2 peas in the finance pod, but you've seen the light. You've seen the light, and you joined the IT crowd. So
yes, my life is not stressful. And,
good. Sorry. Did I just say you work for AWS and your life isn't ever stressful? That sounds like a cool mentality to have living in LA. So go for it. Saying me drinking wine and eating cheese in France. So yeah.
And chocolate croissants. Don't forget the chocolate croissants.
Oh, yeah, of course. Cool. Well, just looking back at last week before we get into this week. Last week, Eric Johnson and Taryn Mowell did Serverless Surprise, and was all about AWS SAM pipelines. We're going to spend a lot of time on SAM today, which is a serverless application model. And SAM pipelines is super cool. This is a really cool and quick and easy and a secure way to set up CI/CD pipelines using SAM. So it's GitHub, GitLabs. There was another one and I can't remember, but anyway. This is really it's another part of the SAM CLI. A few extra commands that makes it really easy to set up your CI/CD pipelines. Can do cross account, sets up IAM roles, permissions, and everything, so you can set up your CI/CD pipelines for multiple stages. So that's super cool. And you can see the recording from last week on youtube.com/serverlessland, and with all the other recordings as I had mentioned before. So just quickly looking back at sort of what's new in AWS Serverless this week. There's the AWS SAM which is a blog post up all about the CI/CD configuration. Super cool for that. Up new from Lambda is the Amazon Code Guru Profiler, and this has announced a new automated onboarding process for Lambda functions, just a way that these two services can work super well together. If you're doing any front-end dev, then AWS Amplify could be your friend, and that now supports some sign-in with Apple. And if you do anything with DynamoDB, and I know Talia is doing a lot of DynamoDB, but the DynamoDB accelerator is something I've also actually been having a look at recently. And it's basically a super duper fast cache for DynamoDB, and the SDK for Java 2 is now available. And then another cool thing for AppSync. So AppSync is our managed GraphQL offering, and AppSync now supports custom authorization with AWS Lambda. So basically, you know how with Cognito you can have Lambda custom authorizers. Now you can have Lambda custom authorizers with AppSync. So that can really take your authentication and authorization to whole new levels, where you can basically do anything you can do in the Lambda function to do that auth stuff, which may be super helpful to you. Then just looking back at the recent AWS Compute blog posts, I will actually post these two links, but silly me, I didn't stick it in my notes, so apologies that I'll stick that in. And just back, our great colleague Ben Smith tells me that it is Jenkins and Code Commit. So Jenkins and Code Commit are the two others which I was stupidly silly and didn't think of talking about. Hello, Ben. Thank you so much for joining us. And a little birdie told me it is Ben's birthday tomorrow. So Ben, happy birthday for tomorrow.
Happy birthday, Ben.
Happy birthday. Thanks for joining us and answering the burning questions of CI/CD. So thank you very much. Just some blog posts that are coming out of the past week, and some CloudWatch dashboards for the MWA, which is Amazon Managed Workflows for Apache Airflow. A blog post I've put out, which is I've been doing a whole series of well-architected serverless. A new one was meant to come out just before the show, and I somehow got a bit messed up and I haven't released it yet. So the one about optimizing application performance is literally going to be pushed out as soon as the show is finished. I'm sorry, I just got messed up with time. Oh, thank you, Rob. Thank you, Rob. Our previous colleague, Rob Sutter, saying happy birthday to Ben. Cool. So good to hear that. James Bezick has got a really good blog post on single table design with DynamoDB. This is a subject that people get quite confused and quite sort of worried and anxious about how on earth you can do this, or whether it's a good or bad idea. And James goes into a really good use case with a number of different ways of thinking about table designs, single table design, and handling the indexes and all that kind of stuff. So that's super cool. And then a cool one actually for Vito de Giosa. He's doing a two-part series. This is the second one on building a serverless multiplayer game that scales. And it's just about scaling these serverless games to sort of huge kind of things. And it's cool. It's something to do with a super simple trivia service. And it's a game that relies on user-generated content. So that's super worth it if you're thinking about anything to do with scaling. Then James Bezick, the beast that keeps writing blog posts and who is incredible himself, has been doing a whole thing on Kinesis and Lambda. So if you're doing anything with AWS Lambda and Kinesis, which is our streaming service, this is a really good series to get a handle on all the advanced functionality with Lambda and Kinesis. Ben Smith, whose birthday is tomorrow, don't forget, is Getting Started with Serverless for Developers, a really great series because this isn't all about jumping headlong into diving into all the code and diving into all the stuff. This really takes a handoff approach and says, what is serverless? What does it mean? What is business logic? And literally does it from a developer's perspective if you're coding in your IDE. So this is very much focused on developers, super useful to be able to get started if you're a developer and you're wondering what on earth this serverless stuff is. Then I've been doing a whole series on well-architected serverless. This basically means if you're wanting to build serverless applications using our best practices, there's the Serverless Lens, which is a way of looking at the well-architected framework. A whole bunch of blog posts that are coming out. They're more queued up for a whole bunch. And the one that's coming out literally after the show is to do with performance optimization and a whole bunch of other ones. And the patterns collection, which you're going to cover today, s12d.com/patterns. I'll skip right past this because you're going to hear everything from Talia about this. So yeah, this week is Lambda week, and we're talking about the serverless patterns collection. Talia, what is the serverless patterns collection?
I'm so glad you asked. So
funny that.
Funny you asked.
And how are you, Teddy?
Oh, Teddy is, he's been trying to get on my lap for the past 10 minutes and I caved.
Cool. Well, we need somebody to make sure that you're at least showing us the right patterns. So we're glad that Teddy is on the case.
Exactly. So the patterns collection is, all it is it's a repo of serverless examples, and it demonstrates how to integrate 2 or more services. So each pattern is going to use either SAM or CDK. And basically, it's just a bunch of templates that we put together so that you can easily create applications and put together 2 or more different services. And we built it for 2 main reasons. Actually, I wasn't here when the patterns collection was started, but I've since contributed to it. So the team built this to be both like an educational resource to help developers understand how to join different services, and also to help developers get started with building serverless applications. And that's what it did for me. I'm relatively new to serverless. I have a few months under my belt, but one of the biggest ways that I learned how to architect and how to build serverless apps was through patterns, because as you'll see, you'll experience like firsthand what's possible with serverless, and you can experiment with all of the different use cases that the patterns provide. You can deploy your applications easily to the cloud. And I'm actually also going to post the GitHub link that you can use, and we'll go through this today, but just in case.
Talia, I love the way that you've framed that as well, that coming in as someone who's not particularly experienced in serverless, that the serverless patterns are for you as well. And it's a really easy way to get going. But it's also super, we've got many experts out there who are using serverless and just wanting to find out how services can connect. But actually, before we even go into the patterns, Talia, when we're talking about serverless patterns collection, part of it is how it works with SAM. What is SAM?
SAM, I'm glad you asked. So SAM is the serverless application model. It's basically how we use, it's how serverless talks to different services in AWS. So SAM stands for Serverless Application Model, and it's basically just a framework that we use for building our applications. And one of the coolest things it does is it gives you like a kind of shorthand to express different resources. And then after you write out all the resources and you write out everything you want, you define that application, and it's usually done in YAML. When you deploy the application, SAM transforms that syntax into CloudFormation, which we're going to see, and that's what makes you build your application. So it's this transformation of SAM to CloudFormation.
Excellent. Oh, that's perfect. EDJ Geek, I'm glad we could answer your question. And I'm joking, because obviously that's Eric Johnson, who knows more than Sam about most people on this planet. But Eric, I'm very glad we could answer your question about what is SAM. Yeah. So part of it is SAM, as you had mentioned, Talia, and the other part is the CDK. And so people are like, SAM, CDK. Well, actually, SAM and CDK work together. CDK stands for the Cloud Development Kit, and this is a way that you can deploy resources in your AWS account using normal programming languages like Java and Node and Python. And so instead of crafting CloudFormation or using SAM as a framework to craft CloudFormation, you can just do resources within Java, within Python, and all that kind of different thing. So different ways of basically creating CloudFormation. CDK, people love it if they are programmers already, because they go, I know Python, I can now deploy resources using the CDK, and within my Python code, I can go and spin up whatever I need to do. And SAM is sort of from the other side, that's maybe not necessarily developers. Obviously, developers can use it super well, but it's just 2 different ways of doing it. And there was actually an internal thread today where one of our internal people asked, well, SAM or CDK? And it's like, either, whatever floats your boat. The best thing to do if you're going to build any kind of application is to use a framework. CloudFormation is super powerful, but it is super verbose, and you're going to get yourself tied up in knots. So use SAM if you want a declarative framework for doing CloudFormation. If you're a developer, also look at CDK. And it isn't an either or, it's literally both. I do have a link here somewhere if I can find it, where literally AWS SAM and the CDK is better together. And it's basically, we have a preview out at the moment, which the SAM has support for local development and testing of CDK projects. So I'll stick the link into the chat over there, and that is super awesome. So it's not even an either or at the moment, it's sort of pretty much both. Talia, so yes, you were telling us about the patterns, and then, sorry, I went onto a big tangent about CDK.
No, that's basically just an intro of what it is. I think once we get into them, we'll see a little bit more in detail.
Cool. So I've just put the link on the screen over there. So that's also, this is all open source, all these samples, these patterns on the AWS-samples. And yeah, we'll cover a little bit later in how to contribute and how to even add more patterns if you so wish.
Yeah. Cool.
So Talia, do you can I add your screen to the stream, or you got too many pictures of Teddy on there at the moment?
Yes, let's, we can go ahead and share my screen. Let's go home first. Oh, that's not what I wanted.
So yes, while we're even there, that is the Serverless Land website, and this is the great aggregation site on all things serverless, from all the YouTube videos linked from there, all the blogs that are written about serverless, events that are coming up, learning paths. I did mention videos, events coming up, and if you look at the top over there, it says something that says patterns.
Yes, and that's what we're going to go through right now. So basically, serverlessland.com is where we post all of our content and how you can learn more about serverless. We update this with new stuff all the time. So this is kind of our home base. So we're going to talk about patterns today, and all you do is go to serverlessland.com and choose patterns here at the top, and or you can just go to serverlessland.com/patterns, and here you'll see right now we have 62 patterns, and basically you can see it's just how to connect two different AWS services. Some of them are three, but this is where you can access them, and you can see here on the left you can filter by SAM or CDK, and then you can also filter by the service you want. So I want to do, for today's demo, I'm going to do DynamoDB to Lambda, and so now I'm going to see all the patterns that have DynamoDB and Lambda, and I'm going to scroll down. You can see some of them have SAM, have the SAM label, and some of them have the CDK label, and you can see that right here. So let's go down. Let's find DynamoDB to Lambda. There it is. And so when you click on each pattern, you're going to see kind of like the pattern homepage, and here you'll see a description of what the pattern does. So for this one, you invoke a Lambda function from changes to a DynamoDB table. So every time.
Do you mind just zooming in a little bit? I think just. I'm talking entirely for myself. For some of the old people in the back without glasses, they're gonna. There we go. Thank you.
Is that better?
That is great. Thank you.
Perfect. So basically every time an item is added to a DynamoDB table, the Lambda function is invoked, and we're going to see that in a second. Another thing that you'll see here on the pattern homepage for each specific pattern is the actual pattern. So like I said, the pattern is just the template.yaml file, and here you can see it's written in YAML, and you can see the runtime here is Node, but you can also customize this to make this whatever you want. And you'll see all of these attributes that we have that we'll talk about when we go to the pattern. What else do we need to talk about here?
Just picking up on your point before, you said the serverless patterns collection isn't like a whole big list of big fancy architectures that you're going to do. It's actually deliberately scoped down to be 2, maybe 3 services together. And the idea is that what you can do is you can grab these code snippets and import them into your own application. So this isn't, creating a stock checking app or a game or something. This is just, I want to have DynamoDB streams and I want to pick them up with a Lambda function. And there you've got. So it's short, sharp, to the point. And so you're not having all these complicated architectures. You've got these snippets, and then you can combine multiple of them into your SAM template to actually bring up your application.
Right. It's not meant to be complicated. It's meant to be like a simple, this is how you connect these two services. And then you can use different patterns together. Like if you want to build on top of one specific pattern, you can add a few of them together. But this is kind of like the base. Cool. So should we go ahead and try this out?
Let's do it. Well, I say let us do it. I say, yeah, let you do it.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here to the download text, and I'm just going to click on it, and it's going to copy this command to the clipboard. And then I'm going to head over to my terminal, and I'm using Cloud9, but you can use any IDE that you like. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to paste those download instructions, and then I'm going to change directories into the DynamoDB to Lambda folder. And before I do that, I'll just show you, once I clone this repo, I have now every single pattern that's in the patterns collection. So if I wanted to deploy any of these apps, I could. So, but right now I'm going to do DynamoDB to Lambda. And so let's just look and see what's inside of that folder. Here you'll see the actual template. I'm going to make this a little smaller so you can see a little more of what I'm talking about. Cool. So these are the resources that are created in this pattern. So we have a Lambda function, and you can see that it is a Lambda function because of this syntax. And the function is called DynamoDB process stream function. And you can see it in our source folder. There it is. That's our Lambda function. And then the other thing that's created is a DynamoDB table. And so this DynamoDB table is the event source for this Lambda function. You can see that here in lines 14 and 15. And yeah, so this is already created for you, and you can use this as kind of a base for your applications. Anything else before I deploy, Julian? Anything else I should point out?
No, I think that's good. I mean, yeah, we can deploy first, and then maybe just talk through some of the things in the pattern. Particularly the security stuff. I think that's always the cool thing with SAM.
Yeah. Okay. So let's deploy, and then we'll talk about that. So, okay. So we're gonna CD into that folder that we want. Cool. And so now that we're in this folder, we're gonna run SAM deploy guided. And this is going to deploy our application, and then it's going to ask us some questions about our app. So I'm actually going to, I think I already have a SAM app running, so I don't want to error this out. I'm going to call it a SAM app 7. And it's going to be in that same region. I don't want to confirm changes. So this is, I think, one of the things that we were really excited about in terms of security is that this question is, do you want to allow the SAM CLI IAM role creation? And what that means is, do you want SAM to create the expected security configurations for you when you deploy? And this is something that's really cool because let's say if you don't have the permissions set up for these two resources, SAM will do it for you. Right, Julian?
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's a kind of, this is also a self-contained little kind of thing. So the IAM role, everything is all going to be created in this bubble of this CloudFormation stack.
Right. So I'm going to leave this default as yes because I want SAM to create the roles that are necessary for me. So keep that as yes. We can keep the arguments in a configuration file. And we're going to keep the default environment. So what's happening now is there's a change set that's going to be created. And this is similar to like when you do like a git diff in GitHub, where you'll see the differences between what's already created and what's going to be created now. And obviously we're starting from a brand new app, so there isn't going to be anything created. So it's going to create everything from scratch. And I'm actually going to try to make this a little cleaner. So you can see these are all of the resources that are being created. We have the IAM role that's automatically created. We have the DynamoDB table. We have the Lambda function. And this is all being created automatically for you. And the roles are being created for you. What else? It's transforming the template that we have from SAM to CloudFormation. And you can see that here, this is all CloudFormation.
Yeah, super useful. So I mean, there are not that many lines of YAML, and even in this one, because you've got more. In fact, it's more DynamoDB properties that you're actually, because you're capturing DynamoDB streams. Most of that YAML lines are all actually what are you going to do with DynamoDB? You know, what attribute types, as you show there, schema, and where you're going to be starting from. So literally, this template is mostly to do with DynamoDB. But oh yes, we want a Lambda function that's going to pull off the back of it. So yeah, Talia, I just wanted to ask, we spoke about the IAM role, but tell me about the sort of least privileged access to do with SAM and how that handles that as a best practice.
Yeah, so generally with serverless, you're automatically, not automatically, you're granted least privilege when it comes to different resources. So let's say for this app, for example, the IAM role that was created for us, it's just going to give you the least privilege that you need to access the resources. And they do that on purpose because of like security and privacy settings.
Yeah, so I mean, it is automatically going to set the least privilege, but you can set any privileges you want. But the really cool thing with SAM is that you can say, if you need to read from DynamoDB, you can just use what is called a manage policy to say, I want to read from X DynamoDB table, and that's pointed into the same template. And so you don't have to craft the whole IAM policy, which can be this whole bunch of JSON, which is going to be confusing. And yeah, the whole policy template yourself. These policy templates are just there for the using, and you can just do DynamoDB read policy, job done. You don't need to do anything else. And that is the least privilege to only that DynamoDB table for that function. It's really scoped down as close as you could do. Sorry, Talia, I cut you off.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to point out, if you do have like a specific policy that you wanted to add, you can find those in the documentation for SAM, and there's a whole list of them that you can find in the docs if you needed something specific.
Yeah, so way before you ever think of handcrafting your own IAM policies, look at these managed policies, because they're also the same as CloudFormation ones, a whole bunch of list of ones. I know it's a bit small on the screen there if you can't see it, but anyway, Talia, if you can just copy those into the chat, then people can at least see those, and this really makes your life 10 times easier.
Yes. Okay, so once this is done, you'll see this successfully created updated stack, and that's our app, and this is the region. So if we go now into DynamoDB, because we want to test this out. So now we're here in DynamoDB, and I'm going to go to tables, because our table should have been created for us, right? Where can I scroll down? It's kind of a weird.
we're in super zoom mode here.
Yeah. Let's go. I'm going to reload this because I don't see the table yet. There it is, SAM app 7. So this is the DynamoDB table that was automatically created for us. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to the items tab. I'm actually going to zoom out a little bit. Let me know if
no, that's good. We can still see.
Okay, cool. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add an item to this table. So we're going to call this name, and we're going to say Julian. So we're going to save this. So now you can see we have this new item in our DynamoDB table. Now let's go over to Lambda and see what happened in Lambda world. Here's our SAM map 7. This is our Lambda function.
But in fact, Talia, if you just go up as well, before, if you can just scroll up a little bit into that Lambda window, you can see there's the Lambda function, and then DynamoDB is connected to the Lambda function as a trigger. So that's all set up in the SAM template. Any changes to DynamoDB are automatically going to invoke the Lambda function. We run the pollers for you. You don't have to connect. You don't have to poll. You don't have to get Lambda to poll something from DynamoDB or anything. Just add an item into the DynamoDB table. It automatically fires off a Lambda function, and you can see it on the screen there. Couldn't be simpler.
Exactly. Okay, so we're going to go down to the monitor tab here. And then we're going to choose View Logs in CloudWatch. This is where we're going to see the logs for the Lambda function. And let's see. Let's open this log stream. We're looking for Julian. Oh, there it is. There's the new image. So this is an example of a DynamoDB to Lambda pattern, and you can see this Lambda function was invoked when we added this new item into that DynamoDB table. Really cool.
That is super cool. Talia, one other thing, can we just look at the CloudFormation console and just see what was created with that? Because SAM is using just CloudFormation under the hood. And hopefully, we should just be able to see all the resources that are created over here. Because some people sort of think, I use these frameworks and it hides all the stuff from you. But yeah, literally nothing is absolutely hidden. Here are all the IDs. Here's everything in CloudFormation. You can go and delete the stack. You can do whatever you need to do with the stack and then jump off. So yeah, what we've got a DynamoDB table. Everything we saw before being created, those are the IAM roles, the function, and everything.
Right. So the 4 resources that were created, we have the Lambda function, we have the event source mapping, which maps DynamoDB to Lambda, which it maps DynamoDB as an event source for Lambda, and then we have the IAM role, and then we have the actual DynamoDB table. And this was all done in that template. Let me open the template.
I mean, that didn't take long to deploy. I mean, we were chatting, and it was going, it's like 30 seconds to a minute. So literally, these are so easy to be able to deploy multiple ones yourself. Just see how it works. Go back into the console, have a look around. Use SAM local to even test them if you want. Yeah, really good way to be able to learn how this stuff works, as Talia was saying. And also, if you need some advanced patterns and you know how these things work, why reinvent the wheel and start hunting around the interwebs and the internet to try and find these obscure patterns. Go to the patterns collection, they're all there.
Yeah. Should we do another pattern, Julian?
Yeah, let's do another pattern. More patterns for the win.
What did we say we were going to do before? Here we did DynamoDB to Lambda, maybe. Oh, we're going to do Lambda to S3. Let's do that.
Sounds good.
Looks fun. So 1 to Lambda and 1 from Lambda. Let's see, where are you? There's so many patterns. Lambda to S3. There you are. Cool. I wrote this one. How funny.
As if fun magic.
I had no idea. Okay, so same thing. I'm going to copy the download link, and I'm going to go back to Cloud9. Actually, I am just going to CD into this folder. So this is Lambda to S3. Lambda to S3.
While you're deploying there, I'm just going to grab this question because, yeah, this is a simple deployment as well. From Explosion or Tenure, if you need to tag the resources created automatically by SAM, for example, operations, infrastructure, compliance, how do you do that in SAM? Yes, you can. I'm pretty sure I have seen one of the patterns which does have tag resources in that. You can either tag them from the Lambda function or you can tag them from DynamoDB. I think you can put tags in the global section, but maybe I'm wrong with that. But basically also remember that anything you can do in CloudFormation, you can do in SAM. SAM is just pulling in things from CloudFormation as well. So any way that you can also do tagging in any of the other resource properties, you can do in the same way. So yeah, you can certainly do tagging in your SAM template.
Cool. I just want to point out this pattern before we deploy. So for this pattern, we're creating an S3 bucket, and you can see this is a destination bucket. So before we had Lambda. With Lambda, you can have triggers and destinations. So if you trigger something, that would be a trigger for the Lambda function, which means, like, for example, we did DynamoDB. So every time something was happened with DynamoDB, it triggered the Lambda function. So now we're having a destination for the Lambda function, which is kind of the other side. So every time the Lambda function's invoked, we're gonna do something. So in this case, we're gonna write to an S3 bucket. So this is our S3 bucket, and then we have this Lambda function. Yeah, it's a pretty short pattern. It's only 26 lines.
So where is the resource policy in that pattern? Because you've got the put object Lambda.
So we have this.
There we go.
Yeah, we have this S3 CRUD policy, and I believe this just makes it so that you can write to the bucket.
Yeah, exactly. So, well, CRUD would be the create, or update, delete. So that would be sort of more stuff than you, whatever you can do to that S3 bucket. So this is an example of a Lambda function that can do anything just to that S3 bucket. But if you were just writing something, you could probably use an S3 write policy, maybe. I mean, Think of it. Look how simple those names are. S3 CRUD policy. I presume there's an S3 write policy and S3 read policy. And you just do the bucket name with a reference, job done. There's your minimum IAM permissions.
Yep, and you can see those here. We have exactly what you just said: read policy, write policy, the CRUD policy, and these are all here. All right, let's go. Should we deploy this?
Let's deploy.
We're gonna again do SAM deploy guided, and I'm gonna call this SAM app. Let's call it 8. In the same region, use the same bucket name. And again, I'm gonna allow SAM to create the IAM roles for me. And we can save this to a configuration file. That's all fine and dandy. Can you guys see this? Is this big enough?
It's a little small, but to be honest, I reckon we can, it's there. There's not a huge amount to see, so I reckon we're good.
Okay.
Yeah, just back to what Talia did before. She's basically answering all those questions with a -- guided, which then fills in something in a samconfig.toml file. And that basically writes the destination S3 bucket where the resources are going to be done. That's separate from this policy, which is the Lambda function, which is writing to the policy. Looks like we've got some error there, but basically that toml file means next time you deploy, you just do SAM deploy, and it just picks up those things and off it goes and does a CloudFormation stack update.
Yeah, it doesn't like something here. Let's figure this out. What doesn't it like? It says property bucket name cannot be empty if specified. We have a bucket name here.
Maybe your bucket name, did it ask you for your bucket name and then it didn't need to be empty?
Oh, this guy. Yes, let's do that again. This new
Thank you, Sahil. Destination bucket needs a name. Yeah, and this is interesting. You have correctly said that it needs it in the parameter section, but what Talia is doing over here is setting the arguments within the samconfig.toml, so you don't have to hard code the bucket name in the parameter section. So this is would be really useful to reuse.
Yep, and I'm actually going to delete our stack so we can create it from scratch. Let's just wait for this to, there we go. All right, third time's a charm.
Always.
Yeah, so this is going to be called new bucket, and that's already, you can see that it's already in the parameter. Cool.
Yeah, we'll be maybe that bucket name, because bucket names do need to be globally unique. So may need to do some keyboard funny stuff, but we'll see. We're about to find out.
We'll see if someone already created new bucket. Probably should have added some. Oh, new bucket already exists.
There we go.
Okay.
So this is when with S3 you need to come up with your creative bucket names.
All right, we're gonna try this again.
Yes, and Susalamin, are we able to try this without cost? Generally, yes. The Lambda works within the free tier that you can run up to 1 million in Lambda invocations a month, every single month. So testing out these patterns, if you're just using a normal AWS account and you haven't got a bunch of stuff going in, the Lambda stuff's definitely going to be free. The DynamoDB stuff's going to be free. There's going to be a lot of stuff that's going to be free. I think some of the advanced patterns that maybe use NFS or use maybe some of the Kinesis stuff, maybe that's going to be a small little charge to be able to test this out. But yes, generally a lot of these patterns are going to be well within the free tier, so you won't be charged for any of that.
All right, I think we got it this time. The S3 bucket always gets me because I always forget that they're globally unique. So like if anyone in the world has a bucket that's named, you know, whatever, then you, bucket name should not contain uppercase characters. Look at all this stuff I'm learning today.
There you go. This is also a cool way to learn about how S3 buckets work. You just bump up against all of it.
This is the life of a developer. You just
exactly
keep iterating after failure. It's fine.
Exactly. But I mean, the point of this is as well, it's not really taking a long time to redo and redeploy. And it's even faster if you're going to change the code within a Lambda function, because you don't need to do the deploy -- guided. All you need to do, and you don't need to then delete the stack. So if you're doing your code within a Lambda function, you just do a SAM deploy and off it goes and deploys the new code within the Lambda function off to the cloud and job done. So yeah, I mean, you can see also if you're learning how to do this, this isn't a particularly tiring and annoying process. Seriously, if that comes back with bucket name exists, that would be really... Someone has just jumped in there before previously when it failed.
Someone who's watching this is messing with us right now and is like doing it
it's not the main
as
stealing,
we're doing
it's S3 buckets stealing.
All right, the change that was created, so that's a good sign. Let's see if the resources are created too. So you can see it's creating a couple IAM roles. It's creating our S3 bucket. Let's see if it creates our Lambda function.
Yeah, and in fact, Father Goblin, is there a command that can be used in SAM to create a randomly named bucket? And in fact, there is no command, but best practice is get SAM to name everything for you by itself. So before, when we jumped into the Lambda function and the DynamoDB table, you could see the name was sort of this long with the app name you call that. That is the best way to do it. And so this is an example to show you how that you can enter the parameter manually. But yes, definitely just get SAM to create all the things by default. And if you don't specify a name within the parameters property, it's going to generate one automatically. So that's how you would do. That's how you would normally do. So obviously, for some kind of things, if you were using a shared S3 bucket, maybe you were using Lambda functions, multiple Lambda functions to send something to the same S3 bucket, you would want the control of what that S3 bucket is named. But otherwise, if it's just a single Lambda function or single SAM template talking to a single S3 bucket, get SAM to really pick the names. It's going to make life much easier for you.
Right. And we can see here that it was successfully created. Our stack was created. Yay! So now let's go to, where are we going? We're going to go to Lambda. Let's go to our Lambda console. And we're looking for SAM app 8. There it is. That's our Lambda function. And you can see, where is it? Yes, so this is our Lambda function. And I'm just going to hit,
so this is now a Python Lambda function. So actually the last one was Node.js as well. So just to see, this is a Python Lambda function. And so this is just using the botter3, which is the botter3 Python and the Python SDK to write a Lambda within the function.
Right, and I'm going to hit
write to S3.
Test, and I'm going to create a new test event. We're going to call this my event. And let's see what happened once we test. Cool. So now let's go to, okay, so good. We got a 200. So now let's go to S3. Oh, there's our bucket.
Ta-da!
Can't miss it. And let's see what is inside of our bucket.
Cool. So file name.txt was just uploaded into the bucket from the Lambda function.
Yep.
Easy peasy.
Easy peasy. Cool. This is you can see that we literally just created 2 apps in, I don't know, 20 minutes, was it? Before we move on to contributing to the patterns collection, was there anything else that we could talk about, or with these 2 patterns?
Yes, so, well, actually, we do have a question from Sahil again. Thank you for the question. Can you guys show the default bucket that SAM creates to put all templates for CloudFormation for deployment, as it might be a little confusing for anyone new why a new bucket is created? Ta-da, Sahil, that is really helpful advice. Thank you. We appreciate this. So basically, when you create a Lambda function, you need to upload, or when you create a SAM template, you need to upload the stack resources to S3, which then sends it off to CloudFront to do its deployment. So behind the scenes, what you previously had to do is you actually had to create your own S3 bucket just for deployment. SAM manages that automatically for you, and SAM just generates an S3 bucket per region, which it then uses to upload those artifacts. So Talia, if you can jump back to Cloud 9, and you can look in that samconfig.toml file, wherever that has been put, and within that you have S3 bucket. So that S3 bucket is aws-sam.cli-manage default SAM CLI source bucket. So that is the source bucket that all your artifacts are going to be uploaded to, and then CloudFormation is going to build its stuff off of that. So in fact, there's the whole samconfig.toml file. So you see all the stack name that was created, the region, the parameter overrides, which is that destination bucket name. So that's everything. If you were then to run this again, you just do sam deploy without the -- guided once the stack's been created, and it'll just use all the info in the samconfig.toml file to do that. So, thank you very much, Sahil, for that question, and yeah, helping us point out the things that are super useful.
Yeah. Cool. So I just want to point out, if you go to the patterns homepage, you'll see this button on the left that says submit a pattern. So if there's a pattern, and it'll take you through GitHub, I'm not going to log in right now, but if you want to submit a pattern, just keep in mind what we talked about today. We're looking for like simple services that are connected to each other. So we don't want like complex, like 4, 5, 6 different services together. Like I think, Julian, we would like 2 and if at most 3, right?
Yeah, I mean, sort of the point is it's not to show what is possible with SAM. This is all about helping other people to be able to connect 2 services together. So,
right.
Some people, if you're doing something like blue-green deployments, well, maybe you need 2 Lambda functions and a source to do that. That's fair enough. But creating this whole chain of different resources is going to be more bespoke to your environment. So yeah, 2 things together which are going to be useful. And yeah, I mean, as Talia's mentioned before, we're looking for, even if there are existing patterns in SAM, if you want to submit one for CDK, that would be super useful. So yeah, rummage around under the sofa for all the CloudFormation stacks that you may have created over the past year or so. And if they're missing, you'd be doing us and the whole world a favor to be able to look at provide those resources.
Yeah, and we do have a lot of patterns that are submitted by the community. So we create them ourselves, and we also have a ton that are submitted from serverless developers, just like you.
Cool. Just have a question in from Juan. Because we're talking about SAM and we're talking about deployments, it would be nice someday to have a video on deploying a stage and production environments in parallel using SAM in terms of the suggested approach to separate those AWS resources. Now, Juan, what would you say? So
I would say there's this idea of infrastructure as code, and that's basically what we're doing when we're talking about SAM. So with SAM templates, we have this infrastructure, and we're using that to build our application. So when you're using SAM templates, you're using infrastructure as code, and that makes it easier to deploy to different environments. So, for example, let's say you want to make a change to your staging environment or to your production environment. Let's say something that I used to talk about a lot was configuration drift. And configuration drift happens when you make a change to one environment, but not to another environment. So then there's this drift in the configuration between the two environments. So this happens a lot during incident management. So if you make a change to your template and you deploy that template to staging and then you deploy the template to production, you have one source of truth. And I think that's what helps when you have multiple environments, is it's because you don't need to make the change in more than one place. You just make it in the template, and then you can deploy that template to different places.
Yep, that sounds absolutely perfect. And Juan, you did specifically ask about a video. So what I'm going to do is I'm just putting in the chat, which is a blog post which Ben Smith wrote. It's the Ben whose birthday is tomorrow. He's done this SAM pipelines to create the deployment pipeline configuration files for serverless apps, and that was the one for Jenkins, for GitLab, for GitHub, and Code Pipeline. And Ben has created a video on each one. And even though if it's not entirely related, even though it's excellent, thank you, Talia. And even though if it's not entirely related to the application that you're working on, the cool thing is you can see what a CI/CD minimal configuration file looks like, and it has got multiple stages, and you could do it cross accounts and all this kind of thing. So those videos are really simple to show how you could do it, and you can try it out really easily in GitHub Actions or in GitLab to do that. So yeah, Talia's points were, as usual, spot on, talking about the differences between the staging environments. And if you wanted videos, well, Ben's post is right there. I did do that. I did it in the chat as well. I'm just doing the chat. So yeah, you can see that. So thank you very much, Juan, for your questions. Talia, what else would you like to cover? And then I'm going to scroll back and see if we have any questions. And yes, send them on as well, anybody.
I would like to know, Julian, what was your first serverless app that you created with patterns? Do you remember?
Yes, actually, because I started doing one with SNS and message filtering. And funny enough, Talia and I have done a similar talk. I did one last year and Talia did one this year, all on different messaging patterns for serverless, which is really cool. And then this year what happened is the SNS team came out with some cool new functionality, which was some advanced message filtering that you could use. And it was like, ta-da, we've got a serverless pattern for that. So yeah, that was super useful to be able to do that. And I think I actually need to update that one as well, because there was something else that would be cool to stick that to stick in as well. So that would be cool. And I've actually been a bad developer advocate, because I've got a whole bunch of serverless patterns in my head, which I do need to put in. And people may know I've been working with extensions and Lambda layers and all those kind of things. And so I'm very, very keen on creating some more serverless patterns for that, which I will put in as soon as I finish my well-architected blog series, and then I've got to get into doing some more patterns as well.
Yeah, you're also you're publishing a new well-architected post today, right? So people should look out for that.
I am, yeah, please do. So that's on the compute blog. Yeah, there are a few coming out. So yeah, if you not just learning about serverless applications, but you are building them even in dev or in production, and you're really wanting to know some bigger best practices, the blog post is coming out today. It's all about performance. So looking in your Lambda function, what can you do there? Understanding how concurrency works, what can you do there to think about performance? And literally, it's just tips and tricks through. It's probably going to be 19, 20 posts by the time the whole thing is done, with lots of different nuggets of information in there, which I hope would be useful for you.
We have another question.
We do have a question. Oh, so Talia, put the question on if you spotted the question.
It looks like Sahil wants to know about CI/CD for layers.
Yeah, I mean, this is interesting, Sahil. Is it that you want to have CI/CD for layers as a separate entity from the Lambda function, or what do you want to do? Because obviously a layer is tightly bound to a Lambda function. And today, there isn't a way that you can do aliases and versions and aliases for layers. So you need to think of layers as being very tightly bound to a Lambda function. So what I would suggest at the moment is, if you're doing anything with layers, is build separate Lambda functions, one with the layer, maybe version 1, and one with the layer version 2, and sort of have some mechanism to test that out. You can also use blue-green deployments or things like that to be able to switch over to the second layer if you're wanting to do something, but treat them as separate Lambda functions. And yeah, that would be my advice for doing any sort of CI/CD stuff for particular layers. Treat them as sort of completely separate entities, but bound to bound to the same. I don't mean the same Lambda function, but the same code of the same Lambda function. It's probably not a good explanation. You've got two different Lambda functions, same code, but different layers, and you can test that.
Great.
And code with Sean. Onions have layers, lambdas have layers, and ogres have layers. Well, thank you very much for that code with Sean. We take all input seriously, so thank you very much. Cool. One other question I did spot was there was just something from Trooper654. Thank you very much for your question. Is there any way to ensure Lambda operation completes within a defined timeout? I mean, any way to make sure a graceful stop? My only advice for this is you're going to configure a Lambda function, can run for up to 15 minutes. But write something in your code that is going to shut down the Lambda function. Otherwise, after 15 minutes or whatever timeout you configure, the Lambda service is just going to destroy the execution environment and your Lambda function goes poof, and you haven't really had time to properly shut down. So any way to make sure a graceful stop? Yes, there is, but you need to handle that within your code. And so once you receive the event, you maybe, as Talia showed with the pattern, you then write something to DynamoDB. You can then just close any connections if you do. All you need to do is, you don't have to stop the Lambda in service or anything like that. It's going to be killed anyway. Just make sure a graceful stop if you've got any open connections to databases or some third-party API, or if you've got some file handle open. I don't know what that is. That's what you need to do a graceful stop. Otherwise, you don't actually need to manage the Lambda function environment. Lambda's going to freeze that and restart that when it needs to. So also, you don't need to overthink this in terms of having to shut down Lambda.
Awesome.
Cool. Any other? I think we're probably all good with the questions as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to chat about what's coming up next week on Serverless Office Hours. Next is AWS Step Functions Week, and we're hoping to get together a panel of the experts. Eric Johnson is going to be the cat herder, and he's going to get maybe some product managers, maybe some software development engineers. Maybe it's just going to be Eric doing his interpretive dance. We don't quite know yet who the experts are going to be. Actually, I'd love to see Eric doing his step functions interpretive dance. I think that would be fantastic.
I think Eric should do the step functions interpretive dance in the SAM suit, in the squirrel suit.
There we go. That is.
For those of you who haven't seen Eric in the squirrel suit, I think we need to pressure him into coming onto office hours next week in the suit.
as the expert. That would be fantastic. So yes, so that'll be Ask the S folks. We're hoping to get a really good panel up for you to be able to talk about all the cool things. And we did mention it. We spent this whole hour on Serverless Land, everything to do with serverless on AWS. Our time is up. Talia, I so appreciate you putting together so many patterns, putting together a cool demo, and just talking to us from so many different perspectives on how you've been learning serverless with SAM. I've been learning serverless as well via SAM, and the patterns just helps with all of that. So really appreciate it, and thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure, pleasure. Enjoy the rest of your day, and goodbye, everybody. See you